welcome to one of Reason's webinars in the election that we're not actually having. As we know, nowhere to look, hasn't happened yet, nothing's been called, business as usual. Thank you so much for joining us. We are, I'll introduce you to who's sitting right next to me, although she does not need any introduction, but I would first like to acknowledge that we're sitting in Collingwood, which is Wurundjeri country, and it's from the land of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to pay my respects, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone in this room, to pay our respects to elders past, elders present, and any Aboriginal people, or Torres Strait Islander people, or First Nations people who are listening in or watching in tonight. Welcome. We know that when we start talking about politics, we know that Aboriginal people so often are left out of those conversations. And I can assure you that's not something that Reason will do. And if we look at where we are in Collingwood and we look at the activism that happened on Smith Street, and many of you who know this area will know the Aboriginal protests and activism that happened around Charcoal Lane. So it's wonderful to be here. And I'm joined here with I'm joining one or the other. We're joined together. Jane Caro, we're not very tall and we do kind of look alike. Jane Caro, who is Reason's Senate candidate and hopefully the next senator for New South Wales at the, whenever that might be, federal election. Jane, it's an extraordinary time to be alive, as they would say. Yes. Time to be alive.
Not in a good way.
No.
Quite frankly.
And most people look at this time and just think, most people would swear and they would yell at the television and they'd just go, well, F politicians, F politics. But you've gone the other way. You've run in the other direction and you've decided to enter into the fray. Yes. It's not a place you've been before. So when I first started running, I ran completely out of frustration. Like, you know, if anyone asked me, what did you do? Look, I was just so annoyed and frustrated. That was why I decided to run for election. What about you?
Well, snap.
Yeah.
Same motivation. It was really just this astonishment at how appalling everything had become and how moribund our leadership seemed to be and how frozen we seem to be. We've got all these wicked problems, like really, really deep systemic problems getting worse and worse and worse. And yet we have leaders, with some honourable exceptions, but leaders in Australia, a lot of them, who seem to just be going, la, 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 la. We don't need to pay attention to this. Yeah. I mean, there's a refusal to accept that the floods that are going on now are anything to do with climate change. Apparently it's a once in a 1,000-year flood and, you know, everything business as usual. It's all, no, the last one like this happened 11 years ago. What makes it twice in 11 years? That's, you know, that's a serious thing.
And you know, on the same day that you have a politician saying once in 1,000 years, you know, never since Noah's Ark have we had such a flood.
They'd know.
You've got the Intergovernmental report on climate change that is saying we are going to die.
Yes.
We cannot be more serious about this. And we've got people saying, no, once in 1,000 years.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
It's like we're stupider than the dinosaurs, because at least they were wiped out by a meteor, we think, that they couldn't possibly have controlled or known was coming. We're wiping ourselves out. And we're also, even worse in a way, wiping out so many other species on this extraordinary planet. And yes, that was one of the most driving forces where I just thought, we have got to listen to the scientists. We have got to listen to the evidence, and we have got to take the action that they have been recommending we take for decades and decades. And if I can do something about that rather than sniping on the sidelines, which I've done for a long time.
You've been a very effective sniper. Yeah. I mean, not in...
I'm a terrible shot.
Yeah, that's right.
But yes, exactly. And so that was, you know, one of the driving forces. And I've got 2 grandchildren. Yeah. I want to look them in the face, and I'm deeply ashamed that I will be leaving my grandchildren a planet that is in much worse shape than my grandparents left to me. And I think that that is my whole generation's, our whole generation's huge failure.
And it is a failure, and it's something that most of us should be deeply disappointed by. And disappointment is too light a word for this. We should be deeply dismayed by this. You know, we know that, you know, every generation wants to do something better for the next. We want to improve things for our next generation, for our children, for our grandchildren, and yet we're facing a situation that we are going to do absolutely the opposite. And so, you're running for the Senate, and you know, as well as doing a million other things, which I think is
all have happened at once. All are good, but I would have liked them to have been a bit more staggered. Unfortunately, it'll be me who's probably staggering by the end of it. But that's okay. I'll survive. I'll keep going.
You will. You will. I you know, I haven't seen you stagger yet.
No.
But I have, I've
metaphorically.
seen you I've seen you keep going. And, you know, and I love hearing you say that, and I love hearing evidence-based, because so often we put forward policies, and for some of the people who are in Victoria know that we're putting through some work on drug law reform. Now, this is not based on some libertarian fanciful notion. It's based on the evidence. It's based on the research. It's based on how can we keep people safe. It is not. It is moral free in some ways, although it is very moral, I think, to try and save people's lives. But the morality around that, and which it leads, you know, the evidence kind of gets left in the back cupboard, or, you know, under the seat, and never looked at, and they're just going, oh, but what will people think?
And it'll really, and what is happening all the time is actually we have a lot of answers to these wicked problems. We have a lot of answers as to what we need to do to minimise, to reduce harm from drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and all those kinds of things. And cigarettes, we've been pretty successful. You know, we have a lot of answers on what we can do about poverty and homelessness. We have a lot of answers on what we can do about keeping women safe, helping them to have better opportunities. We know what to do.
That's right.
But the problem is we will not bloody do it.
Know.
And that is my frustration, that, you know, I don't claim to be the expert who has all the answers, but I can see the people who do have the answers, who are expert, who spent their lives researching this stuff. And I think to myself, why don't we do what they recommend? It beggars belief that we refuse to do it because, I don't know, a few shock jocks will leverage fear in a few seats, and therefore all the politicians almost like mollusks disappear into their shell. We cannot survive if that's how our politics continue to go.
I totally agree, and I think this is part, and this actually sometimes goes back to the two-party system, and this notion that one is in opposition. So what does one do when one's in opposition? One opposes, you know, and then plays that game of opposing and wedging when, you know, crossbenchers and independents, and we've seen the success of so many great independent people at federal level and also in state parliaments, that they've been able to, you know, get over that idea and start saying, actually, can we just collaborate? Can we actually work together? Can we actually achieve something and progress forward, not oppose? And so you're running for a reason, obviously. You can tell by the backdrop and the teal. That's right, nails. Yeah, she might not teal at the moment, but they will become. You know, come Mr. Morrison's visit to the Governor General. But yeah, why reason? And I think you can be very candid.
Yeah, well, first of all, and honestly, you asked me.
Yes,
and nobody else did. So, you know,
don't ask, don't get.
Exactly. And also you think, okay, there's a bird in the hand. I may as well take it. But, you know, I did actually carefully think about it. And it wasn't an easy decision because I was a dual citizen. Mind you, thank you, Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, for doing Brexit. Made it a lot easier to give up my British citizenship than it would have been beforehand. So, you know, I got rid of my citizenship. And then I thought, yes, I like what Reason stands for. I feel that it makes sense. I like the evidence base. I like the lack of, it's not a lack of morality, it's a lack of moralizing. And what we see so often in our parliaments now is moralizing. And that is getting in our way. It's not helping us. And so I liked that the party actually had extremely high moral values, but it was not about moralizing. And I also liked that it was small, because I think one of the problems with the two-party system too is the dependency on big donations from big players. Because what that means is we get trapped into actually our politicians having two masters, the public certainly, but also those who fund their campaigns. And what I like about a smaller party is, you know, and an independent, we're all operating on the smell of an oily rag. And whilst that's hard, and it means you work really hard, and the people who work with you, thank God for them, but they work their bums off, you aren't beholden. And I wouldn't have run if I had to be beholden. Because there's no point. The whole word independent means not beholden. And okay, we're not technically independent, but we are independent enough.
And certainly the way Reason wants to operates is that we are effectively, that it is, each vote is a conscience decision. Now, we would expect that that conscience decision is based on evidence, is based on, you know,
reason,
and, you know, and a whole range of other issues around equality, etc. But you're right. And you know, you look at those major parties and how fraught it is for them. You know, we saw the Labor Party, how they grappled with climate change and tried to send one message to miners in Queensland and another message to inner city folk in Victoria. And the same with the Morrison government, where they're having to send one message to their sort of far right, evangelical, Pentecostal religious right, and another message to those people who are much more interested in equality.
Well, women in you know, traditional Liberal seats who are rising up in open rebellion. I mean, the fact that by-election in Willoughby in New South Wales was so close for the fabulous independent there is extraordinary. She had 2 weeks to put that campaign together, no money at all, and she just about won. That is an expression of pure rage. You and I were manning the booze on that day, and what I picked up from the people who were going to vote for Larissa was that they had a head of steam up. There was steam coming out of their ears, and they put their head down. Nope, I'm just voting for her. And I love that fury and that anger. I actually think it's a really constructive and healthy fury, which is basically saying, I care about our democracy. I actually want to see it work. You asked me, why did I run towards politics instead of away from it? Because democracy has to survive. And it's under dire threat. And anything other than democracy is literally unthinkable, quite frankly. So it is our responsibility, all of us, if we care, to get out there and get involved in our democracy and in making it more trustworthy, because democracy dies without trust.
And I think it's such a good point that you make, that it is our responsibility. You know, we have these most, you know, wonderful rights of living in a free and democratic country. You know, the rights that we're seeing trampled on in so many other countries, Ukraine at the moment. But with that is a responsibility.
Yes,
it's a responsibility. It's a civic, you know, it's a civic duty, and whether that's deciding carefully about who you're going to vote for, or whether that's actually getting involved. And you know, we run a Westminster system that was not based, that was developed long before political parties. So we run on a system that actually would function a hell of a lot better if we were all independents. We're actually, you know, it's really it's awkward, our process, when they've got to play with parties and we've got to have this sort of opposition. You know, in my chamber, a third of us are not from the two major parties. And so we outnumber the opposition. Yeah, and, you know, and then the opposition says, well, why aren't you opposing? And I'm like, because I'm not the opposition. You know, that's right.
I don't know. It's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
You know,
that's
go with
right.
it. It'll help people. Why would I oppose it? Exactly. And I think if you look at some of the countries that seem to be doing a lot better at solving some of these wicked problems, and we were a bit sneery about them in the past, places like Germany, some of the Scandinavian countries who never have majority governments. They always have to cobble together, some kind of alliance between a whole, and it takes a long time for them to decide. And yet, I'm afraid they are handling these really wicked problems much more effectively and efficiently than we are.
Absolutely. And I think that's, and we see that. Look, we saw that with Julia Gillard when she was Prime Minister, and she put through more legislation than I think just about any modern day Prime Minister has done. Yet she had to negotiate every single bill. And you know what? The Victorian government has to do that as well. They have to negotiate every single bill. And I actually think that develops better legislation. And I feel sorry sometimes for my, colleagues on the backbenches who have to vote for things they don't want to vote for, and Peter Garrett, is an example where there you had a person who campaigned against nuclear.
So effectively.
And wonderfully, and they're back on stage, which is fantastic. But there he was, as the Environment Minister, having to sign off on a uranium mine. And that is the problem with, it's the problem with major parties. It's why you and I have probably never been a member of one and never will be, but it's why groups, people like us and Reason and independents like Helen Hames or Kath McGowan or Andrew Wilkie, all of them have just, Rex Patrick, have all done remarkable work in Jackie Lambie. Yeah, many of them, well, there's a few that we won't mention. Yes. The same company.
No.
They know who they are. But for the most part, those independents have made a really positive change and have had really positive impacts on our democratic systems and on the lives of the people in their electorates.
Absolutely. And it's not to say that we don't need larger parties as well. We do. But we don't want it to become just a duopoly. We do that all the time in Australia. We have 2 airlines, 2 major supermarket chains, 2 major media organisations. None of it works terribly well. We need much richer, much more diverse. We're always talking about diversity, diversity, blah, 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 blah. But we don't have a lot of it when you actually look at it. And that's what we need a lot more of, because just like it does in a company where everyone says, if you've got more voices around the table from different backgrounds, you get better decision making. Well, why would that be any different in our parliaments?
And it's not. And in fact, that's exactly what we find, that when you do have that greater range of voices, you do get better decisions, and you get things like the NDIS.
Yes.
You get
the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sex Abuse, the last and one of the greatest things Julia Gillard ever did in her Prime Ministership. And it was an extraordinary thing. And we look at what that has done for so many of those victims, and the lives it has possibly saved. And I also think it's had an effect on things like Me Too in Australia. That when people started to tell the truth about their real lives and what happened to them, we were no longer able to pretend that it didn't happen. And we've had to face up to things. And until you face up to things, you can't do anything about them.
Yeah.
And so things like that have made such a difference. It's a shame that the NDIS at the moment seems to be being whittled away in many ways. That really concerns me. That's one of the things that I would be very much engaged in making sure remains strong, in the same way that Medicare has to remain strong. And we've seen things come out of the Medicare rebate that are really impacting on people. It's why I think I'm gobsmacked that in Australia we don't talk about poverty and we don't talk about class. And both of those are so important. I believe of the latest figure of the number of people in Australia, it's now gone up to 14% of the community are living in poverty. Unbelievable. 14%.
And people do not want to hear that.
Nope.
They do not want to hear that. They do not want to hear that women over 50 are the fastest growing cohort of people experiencing homelessness. They do not want to hear that. And it's important that we do hear it, because if we don't, you can't manage what you can't you can't measure. So if we're not talking about it, we're not doing something about it. And I think the same with when we think of the statement from Uluru and the truth telling that is required there as well. And I know in Victoria we've made some progress there, but federally we have so much more work to do.
Absolutely.
In that area. And I think the statement of the Uluru statement is such a great starting point for us. And I hope that when you're in federal parliament, that that it becomes more than conversations, that we actually see those actions.
Oh yeah, I mean, we have to listen to Indigenous Australians. They have many things, many wise things to tell us, not least about how to manage our forests, our land, our climate change, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we've been so arrogant in the way that we've just marched in and said, oh, we'll take over managing this country from here. And look what we've done to it in a mere 250 years. It's absolutely, I mean, it's terrifying.
Yeah. Deaths in custody, 30 odd years ago, more Aboriginal people died in custody now than they did then.
Yeah.
We had that moment of honesty where we recognized this, and then the politicians did nothing. We didn't do anything. We now, Victoria, fastest growing cohort of people going to prison here are Aboriginal women.
I am sick and tired of living in an Australia that has to keep apologising for things.
Yeah.
You know how we have all these big, everyone puts their hand on their heart and says they're really sorry. I can't remember how many times we've done it. I'd like to live in Australia that doesn't do things in the first place that we then have to apologise for.
Or, sorry is a lovely thing, but where is the action?
And how do we make sure we don't have to say sorry again?
Right.
We can see things now we're going to have to say sorry for. What we're doing to refugees. One day, a Prime Minister is going to stand up in our Parliament and say, we were wrong, we shouldn't have done it. We all know it's wrong and that we shouldn't be doing it.
That's right. And, when we look at, family violence and violence against women, again, we're making apologies again for the women. We're apologising to Brittany. We're apologising to Grace Tame for not believing her. We're apologising to so many women. But where is the action to change that? Where is the action? And we know that action is actually around equality, that it's not around people doing less. I've been handed some magic envelopes over here, I think. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to cut this off because I think this person is actually cutting us off. Very wisely. Now, Robin says to us, with so many issues requiring attention, which it's really true. Going everywhere there. What are Jane's top 3 priorities? What strategies is she considering to approach these priorities?
Well, my top 3 priorities, I think we've pretty well covered them. Climate change is obviously, I just think it's so existential and pressing.
Yeah.
That has to be the first one. Obviously, inclusivity, that really matters to me. And equality of opportunity for women, of course, but also for LGBTQI communities, Indigenous Australians, refugees, people living below the poverty line, people living in financial stress who we never listen to.
I know.
Those people, anyone who's marginalised, left out, people with a disability, dependent on the NDIS. For me, it is always, the people who don't get a voice are the ones that you should be most interested in listening to and hearing. They've got stories to tell that we haven't heard. They've got solutions to offer that we haven't paid attention to. And the third one is, it's all about evidence as well. That I have 4, so 3 is hard. But the other is
I'm sure Robin won't mind.
Thank you, Robin. Via Fiona. Public education. dear to my heart. We cannot change intergenerational poverty while we are entrenching it in our education system. We just cannot. We must do something about that. That changes the whole society. Public health. We've seen how stretched and overwhelmed it has been through COVID. It's so important. It is right. Public housing. Shelter, education, and health are rights. They are not privileges. They are rights for everyone. Public transport, public spaces. I'm over privatising everything. It's fine in some areas of our society and works really well. It's bloody awful in other parts of our society and makes everything worse. Aged care, not a great advertisement for privatising things. Childcare, not a great advertisement for privatising things. The vaccine rollout, not a great advertisement for privatising things. I'll shut up now, Robin.
No, there's actually not many good examples, but I agree with you. And I think, public health it's something that people look to us from overseas, amazed that we have this system. And we take it for granted. And because we do, it's diminished. The same with our public education. You and I both had public education. And when I was growing up, there was a public school in every suburb. And
they were excellent and they were well resourced.
They were excellent and well resourced. And
they're still excellent, but we're relying on the goodwill of our teachers, and that can't last forever.
And we've seen this, and I think, in a weird way, we've all kind of had, because we've had kids at home, because we've been homeschooling, because we've actually had to see the amazing work that our teachers are doing. And then so many of us are saying, why are we not paying them so much more?
And reducing their workloads, which are particularly about administration and data collection, which frankly the bureaucrats should be doing, and letting them get on with what they went into teaching to do, which is actually educate children.
And I hear that from teachers every day.
Me too.
That's exactly right. And the same with our health system. We have a health system that kept us going, and we still are paying minimum wage to our aged care workers, and we're paying minimum wage to people that have just been providing the most loving care to some of our most vulnerable people. So good on you. I think these are great. Could I just I think I'm going to go to the next question, but which relates to this one, but I just want to do a shout out, because I think going back to public education, and that goes back to you and I both ambassadors for the secular organisations, but it does go back to that secularism. And we will be having a webinar similar to this with our Queensland Senate candidate, Ron Williams, who I know is watching right now.
Love
so
Ron. G'day,
Ron. See you on Sunday. But Ron did some remarkable work in the chaplaincy program and in challenging that little pet project that was not in line with any community opinion, was not in line with. Yes. So the next question is from Natalie, and it goes back to your first priority. Where will Jane be getting her advice for climate change policy and other policies?
I don't claim to have all the answers to everything. That would be impossible, and I don't. What I am interested in doing is asking the people who do have the answers, who are experts, and finding out what the right thing is to do. Yeah. So I will be talking to climate scientists. I know, crazy. Who would have thought? Why would you? When it comes to education, oh my Lord, I'm going to talk to teachers and principals. Goodness, the people who work in schools. There was a quote on Twitter today about a conference somewhere on education, and a person tweeted rather forlornly, 2 hours I've been here and we still haven't heard anyone talk who's ever worked in a school. I don't know why we're not doing that. When it comes to health, I'll be asking, I don't know, doctors, nurses, people who actually work in the system, also patients and students in schools, and farmers and the people who are actually dealing with the issues at the time. When it comes to any issue, I think you go to the people who've studied it and the people who have lived experience of it. And you ask them, what is the problem? What do we need to do? What's the best way to do it?
can I say that exactly? And I have to say that's been one of the most rewarding parts of my work as a member of parliament, is actually going out to people and learning and speaking to the experts and seeking their guidance and seeking their advice and seeking their research and having people explain to me sometimes incredibly complex issues. But, you know, from that with that great knowledge base. And I think it's, yeah, it is one of the great privileges of being a member of parliament, is that you do get to speak to the experts. And, you know, if only more of us would listen to them, rather than speak to them. But I take that
or
back.
Listen to them and then
experts.
say, yeah, I can hear you. Everything you say is right, but no, it's politically impossible.
Yeah, but not now. Yeah,
what?
but not now. And that, you know, and I think, you know, looking at education equity, and this comes from Natalie, saying the Gonski review made recommendations, and she goes on to say that they were largely ignored by both Liberal and Labor.
Yep.
And she would attest that ministers are largely from private schools, as are their children, so they have that conflict of interest. We could improve the education of students instead of investing in luxury facilities.
Oh God, yes. I'm with you, Natalie, all the way. Let's forget about the social justice side of this for a minute. Let's just think about the fiscal responsibility side of this. So what do we do with billions of dollars? We put it into schools that are already luxuriously resourced, or at least resourced above the minimum resource standard. Every private school in Australia, bar a few in the Northern Territory, are resourced above the minimum resource standard, the agreed minimum resource standard. No public schools in Australia, except for a handful in Canberra, are resourced to the minimum agreed resource standard. Now, public schools educate over 85% of disadvantaged students. Any disadvantage you care to name, the majority of them are in a public school. Those kids cost more to educate than nice middle-class kids from nice middle-class households. But what do we do? So if we want to maximise their potential, and talent isn't just born into nice middle-class families. It's, you know, there's a huge range of talent out there that we are wasting, we're throwing away. If we resourced the schools that teach those kids properly, if we gave them smaller class sizes, because class sizes do matter, particularly to disadvantaged children. If we reduced the class sizes, we gave them more teachers, we gave them more support workers, we gave them more of the things that they need, we would see a real return on our investment. Instead, we give it to these already, kids who are doing fine, they're fine, but we give them bucket loads of money so that some schools can build luxurious amenities that are just beyond dreams of wildest avarice. It's such a criminal waste. And then we convince parents via marketing techniques that if they're a good parent, they have to practically sell their soul to send their children to the, and that's wasted money too. They don't have to do that. They don't have to work so hard. They don't have to be so stressed. You know, the public school system will do a wonderful job for your kids. All the research says kids from public schools, comprehensive public schools, outperform both their private and selective school peers at university at the end of the first year, and continue to do so. So it's just, forget about the social justice. It's just such a waste and so foolish.
And, you know, as someone who's been doing inquiries into the criminal justice system, homelessness, and drug laws, like, if you look at the people who fall through our cracks, who end up in the acute ends of our health systems, in the acute ends of our justice system. When I say acute ends, I mean in jail, where we're spending $130,000 a year to keep that person in jail. You can bet education,
of course.
You know, and every time we start looking at solutions, like, how do we fix homelessness? Actually, you fixed equality and you fix things like education, and then you can fix homelessness. It'll fix itself, actually.
And if you fix prenatal care, and you fix, you know, childcare, and you fix all the things that we just regard as, really, women should just do this because it's women's work. And do we have to pay them? Surely they can do it just for love. They're amongst the lowest paid and most important workers in our whole society. They create the future, and we take them utterly for granted.
We've got loads of questions, and I just actually like to apologise. We are not going to get to them all. I'll just tell you that right now. However, thank you to our social media team. They will be getting to them,
Yes.
but maybe just not live. So we'll be certainly responding to all of these questions. Suze Allen asks, can I ask who is on the reason ticket? How many candidates? Would be great to understand them all. Watch this space. Sign up, keep watching. You know, we've got Jane Caro, we've got Ron Williams out there. We will be announcing more Senate candidates, and we will be announcing some lower house candidates, but we're not going to run in every seat, and we're not going to run everywhere. We don't have the wherewithal to do that. But B, I think we need to focus as a small party, focus on the candidates that, you know, on some candidates, and do what we can as best we can.
I have a wonderful running mate. I do have to give a shout out.
You do
to Hannah Ma, who
Hannah
is a policy wonk, which is fantastic because I'm not a policy wonk. And she is the most fabulous, intelligent, smart young woman. And it's absolutely a delight to be running with Hannah.
Ah, yes. Hello, Hannah. I have no doubt you are watching. Selena asks about veterans issues, and I think this is such an important issue, and it is this travesty. We again will be apologising to our veterans. You know, congratulations to Jackie Lambie for getting the Royal Commission into veteran suicides, because in what weird world do more of our Defence Force die when they come back from overseas than die when they're overseas? And we see the levels of PTSD, we see the levels of homelessness, of drug use amongst our veterans,
family breakdown, all of that.
It is absolutely appalling. And you know, in a country that quite often, we mythologize our Anzacs, we do all of this, and yet we ignore the people coming home right now who are struggling with PTSD, who are struggling with, mental health issues, and as I say, who are killing themselves at a higher rate than they were dying overseas defending this country.
PTSD is an area we don't deal with well.
No.
There's an awful lot of women and children out there suffering with PTSD as well, from domestic violence and coercive control, and we give them almost no support. And
as a quick aside note, something that I've taken quite an interest in is looking at some of the alternative therapies for PTSD, which certainly we've looked at things like medicinal cannabis, or even some of the MDMA, even some of the psychoactives like MDMA and psilocybin. And I've been backing and pushing for some really good trials, and I hope that, and many of them have got up, and we're seeing that veterans will be the beneficiaries of those. What about media concentration, skewing reporting, and then plus retaining the ABC as a public broadcaster? And that comes from Jeanette.
Oh, Jeanette, the ABC is so important. And, the ABC is to me like public education. In fact, I should add public broadcasting to my list. Thank you for that, Jeanette. That's a good note to self. It's so important. It's so vital to us as a functioning democracy to have a disinterested public broadcaster that casts a critical eye over whoever is wielding power. That's not bias. That's its job. And at the moment, we have a Liberal National Party government. It is entirely appropriate that they would get more critical media than positive, because they're wielding the power. It worries me that we're not necessarily seeing that in the way that we should, because of this intimidation that is run about bias, left-wing bias, all that nonsense that's spouted. The concentration of the media in Australia is another problem. This duopoly thing again. And indeed, it's almost worse in our media. But one of the things that's happened in the media environment is it's been so impacted by the arrival of the internet, which is both good and bad. So it's given a whole lot of people voices who didn't have voices before. And that, I think, has a lot to do with the Me Too movement. with the success of the equal marriage plebiscite. It's had such a positive effect. Voluntary assisted dying, so many voices have been able to be heard and not shut down, and that's because of the internet. But what it's also done is fragmented, weirdly, our media environment. It's made it very hard to make money. It's made it very hard to get employment. It's made it very hard for journalists to get paid properly, particularly if they're freelance. And so a lot of otherwise well-meaning, intelligent people are doing things a bit like crossing the floor or voting for things that you don't want to vote for because they're desperate to get a start in the media business or to hold on to their job. And because there are so few alternatives, that's concentrating the kinds of messages. It's giving power to people to be able to say, you need to push this line. And the implied threat, otherwise you may not have a job here. I'm not saying that's overtly said. It may not even be meant, but it is often the message that is felt by a lot of people who currently work in the media. And it's destructive to our democracy. And I keep going back to this. Democracy is very flawed, but it's the only form of government that I can even bear to think about. And everything that corrodes it is something we need to reverse.
We are not going to get to any more questions. I just, as I say, we will be responding to those questions, and I would encourage people to go to the Reason website, where every day there's more policies going up there. We really encourage you to be part of this conversation. Jane's on social media. I have no idea when
not
she
as
sleeps.
Often as people think, but no, quite a lot.
But quite a lot. As am I. But we really encourage you to connect with us and talk to us, and certainly get onto our websites and see the policies that we've developed. Suggest new ones. This is the Reason Party. We're really small and and punch well above our weight, and we will continue to do so. And certainly with Jane in the Senate and Ron Williams in the Senate and other Reason candidates, to have those voices of reason speaking loudly and truthfully in those areas. But we need your help to do that. So please do get involved. Jane,
and please do vote for me if you're in New South Wales. Yes. I believe in asking for the sale. Because I'd really like to get in.
Yeah. I think we would all like her to get in. I think, we need more common sense, practical voices that listen to the evidence, that are not based on ideology, are not
or
like
vested interests.
All vested interests. There is so much work that we can do, and so much effect and impact that someone like Jane can have in that Senate. And as we talked about the other independents, we've seen how they've been able to achieve that. And, in our own small way, in Reason in Victoria has managed to, I think, change a number of policies down here that no one ever thought was possible. And we've proved that you can do that with common sense, with collaboration, and with reason.
And shout out to all the other independents and small party progressive candidates who are standing to change Australia and turn it into the progressive, solution-oriented, evidence-based country that it once was and can be again.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Jane, thank you. Thank you for running.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Yes. Thank you for being angry, she's not really. She's,
Well, I am, but hopefully in a constructive way.
In a constructive way. That's right. We will do this again, and we hope to see you all out there, hopefully in person at an event or at a polling booth.
Yes.
It's always volunteering.
Wearing a t-shirt.
That's right. See you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.